Welcome, everybody. This is Beer Guys Radio. This is Brian. I've decided we're going to call this the Hump Day Happy Hour. So,
The
Beer
Hump
Guys
Day
Radio,
Happy
Hump
Hour.
Day Happy Hour.
Okay.
We're going to have a couple beers. We're going to have some good conversation. Mike Lundmark, Jekyll Brewing, is here with us. Mike, thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate being here. This is awesome.
Absolutely. We have got us some beers poured. We're going to jump into it. We're going to start recording the show here. If you have any comments, questions, want to share with us what beer you're drinking, we'd love to hear it. Just drop it in the comments there. And here we go. Nate is out sick, y'all. Wish Nate, get well
on
soon.
assignment.
I know you love saying that, yeah, but I'll see so he can get the well wishes there. But with that said, that means that I have to do the stuff that Nate normally does. So I just have to take a little time here. But I got it. Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We appreciate you joining us. Always good to get together, share a beer, have some good conversation, and good time. So we are going to get right into it. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and we have with us Michael Lundmark, the founder and CEO of Jekyll Brewing Company. How are you doing, sir?
Loving to be here
with us.
Good, man. We appreciate it. So, guys, before we dive into it, let's talk about what we are drinking this week. And Mike, thanks for sharing some beers with us. We appreciate it. Brian doesn't get any. I'm not sharing with anybody else. These are going to be all for me. But I am currently drinking. I don't think I've had this one before, Mike. I have your Jacktown Coastal Lager. Yeah. And next up, I've got the Big Creek Kolsch, which I have had before, but I figured I'd start with the Jacktown since I haven't had that one. And Brian, what are you sipping on?
Well, I was nearly out of beer, but fortunately I bought some this weekend. So I picked up some more Sierra Nevada Summerfest, the refreshing summer lager, as they put it on the can. So I pre-gamed with that. Right now I'm getting into a Stillwater artisanal Tripping Animals collaboration called Still Trippin'. It's a double dry hopped IPA with anchovy, aka experimental 24B05 hops, which
wow.
I just like the name. That's really the reason I got it. The collaboration's pretty neat. So I'm working on that. And then I'm going to follow that up with a Parish Ghost of the Machine, which is a classic. And I very much enjoy that. Are you drinking anything, Mike?
So I'm sitting here. I went down to my cellar and pulled a couple of bottles out. It's really special opportunity to be with you guys. I went West Coast and I went dusty. I'm dusting these things off. So I got a 2016 Firestone Parabola, Imperial Stout, okay. And these have been stored well, for the last several years. So I'm confident they're going to be good. And then another one of my favorite breweries, I don't even know if they're around anymore, Hangar 24. It's a barrel roll. So barrel rolls and a Russian Imperial Stout brewed with maple syrup and aged in bourbon barrels from 2014.
Okay, you know what? I recognize the bottle. I didn't recognize the name, but I've definitely had that one.
I've had that one.
Yeah. So
what is it? Pujachev's Cobra from 2014, 18.9%.
Well, good news. They're still around.
All session beer.
They are still around. Thank God.
Yeah.
They're dropping like flies now, so that's good to hear they're still around.
Their website still has a bunch of stuff for them recently, so that's nice. Yes, you can't take that for granted anymore.
That's right. And on that note, Brian, some sad news this week. One of our favorite breweries closed, Cascade Brewing. And they just announced last Sunday was their last day. They shut down. The owner and founder had passed away in May. And there's some drama surrounding it, Brian. It sounds like there was some issues with the way the company ownership was structured. And unfortunately, Art's unexpected passing has left a lot of people unsure of what to do next. But Cascade was always a favorite. Before they came to Georgia, it was always nice to see them showing up at bottle shares. It was always a thrill to get those. They had Vlad the Imp Ale, I remember, was a good one.
Yeah.
They had
Bourbonic
Leg, which was really nice. And so just really fruit forward, very sour, very fruit forward beers. And I think really one of the first breweries in America doing that. So they were kind of the ones that introduced it to the American palate, American beer drinker. But I also recall, Brian, when they came to Georgia, you and I were at Decatur Beer Festival, and word was on the street that Cascade was coming to Georgia, but they were not an announced brewery at that festival. And we just happened to be standing near a table when they started bringing out boxes of Cascade. And since nobody knew that they were there, we sat there for about 15 minutes drinking all the Cascade we could handle, 2 ounces at a time.
Sample after sample of them.
Until the beer geeks found out that that it was there. So
did you hear about the intrigue behind what the story is there? Like the
why?
Yeah, the potential why. So apparently the owners that they had sold, Art Lawrence had sold the brewery to, they weren't complete owners. They were on a kind of a payment plan. It was a very complicated situation, and they eventually would have taken up full ownership, but on paper and legally, Art was still the owner of the brewery. And when he passed away recently, his liquor license went with him. So I think that they lost their ability to even sell beer there and possibly brew it. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah. And that's pretty rough. And he had been propping it up and supporting it with his own funds. And the family says, we're not going to be able to continue doing that. That's not going to happen. So the new owners don't really own the brewery, and they don't have the funding they used to have, and they don't have a license to sell booze. So it's looking really bad for them. Really
does
bad.
not look good that they'll be, but no Lazarus move from Cascade, right?
Gonna be tough. I mean, they need Hamdi Ulukaya to swoop in and save them.
Take care of it. You know, so one of the new group of owners was a gentleman named Ramey Mount, and I was just curious what their background was. So I did some Google searching. If you do a Google search for Ramey Mount, then the Google results that show up show him as co-owner of Cascade Brewing on LinkedIn. But if you click through to the LinkedIn profile, it now lists him as a manager. And I know that in one of the articles that I read, there's a few out there, of course, about Cascade closing. But he did note, he's like, well, you know, I wasn't really an actual owner as far as, you know, the legality goes. He said more close to a manager. So, you know, sounds like something that maybe some buddies got together and did a handshake deal and did not expect Art to pass away. And this is the result. So very, very unfortunate for the whole situation, not just for the beer guys losing out on beer that they love, but, you know, just bad all around there.
Yeah, it's terrible. But
what was the cause of did he die unexpectedly, or was it?
I saw an article that said it was unexpected. I knew he passed away, but to be honest, Mike, I'm not sure. Brian, do you know the details of that?
I don't think I saw anything about what actually caused the death. I don't think nobody expected it very clearly. So I think it was
my heart goes out to his family. I mean, beer is an unfortunate side effect of it, right? But talking about that whole thing, right? You got this poor gentleman here who's got some loved ones behind him somewhere that are grieving. So good reason to have another good sip for him, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk about the beer aspect of it, but there's a much more important piece to this than the fact that, you know, we're not going to see any fruited sours from them anymore. So, yeah, definitely wish the best for the family there. And sounds like they have some additional challenges, you know, figuring all of this out, you know, on top of losing a loved one. So I hope that they can get all that taken care of for sure.
Yes.
You know, Mike, talking about sours just don't seem as cool these days as they were, say, 10 years ago or what have you. And I actually saw in an article today, they're talking about, I'm not going to say this right. Is it Ono beer or Ona beer? Do you know what that is, Mike?
I don't.
Eno beer?
It's OENO something. It's a grape. It's a beer wine hybrid, I believe.
Yeah.
Or Italian grape ales or something along those lines. But
I think it's Eno, pronounced Eno.
Eno beer. Okay. But they were talking about apparently more breweries are doing these now. And they said, the article said something about it's like when sour beers were more popular back in the 2000s to 2010s. And I'm like, 2000s, that was like, what are you saying back in? I'm like, oh, wait a minute. That was 20 something years ago now. So to the 2000s, but crazy. But looking at all these trends, Mike, I love sour beers. I love wild ales. We went out this weekend to shout out to Proper Hop in Roswell, Georgia. Brian and I sat there a while, drank some beers, and they had a decent bottle list. And we got a couple of Jester King beers. And one was, it had juice from the cherry wine that was really popular. They had that cherry wine at Shelton Brothers Fest. when it
Mhm.
came to Atlanta. But it had
Francis
Frederick Stahl or
Frederick
something like
Stahl,
that.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Frankenstahl. Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
it
don't
was a
know.
wild ale with the Frederick Straw cherry juice in it. It was just stellar. But those just aren't as hot as they used to be. And speaking of hot, Mike, I'm just doing so great with the segues this week. Another beer you don't see much of anymore is beers that utilize peppers. And
Yeah.
we had a moment there where they did that. And I know you had one that was very popular.
Yeah.
Pineapple habanero hop dang diggity. And is
Yeah.
that one still an offering from Jekyll?
It's our number 4 bestseller still.
Okay. Yeah.
10
All
years
right.
later. I mean, that thing
Yeah.
rocks. Yeah, it sure does.
It's a great beer. And you're probably aware of this, but that beer inspired Atlantucky, Nappy Roots, Atlantucky Brewing. Skinny DeVille was a big fan of. He loves the pepper beers. So they have a beer they call Habo Manganero, I think, Brian. Is that right? I always get the name a little, but of course
Yeah,
it's
I think it's
mango habanero.
Yeah,
And
Mango habanero. Yeah.
we've been drinking that since they opened, and we just had it a couple weekends ago. Man, they've really dialed that in. That's a great beer, and
I'm going to have one of those.
yeah, definitely inspired by Hop Dang Diggity there. He was a big fan of that beer. So
I love hearing. I'll go down rabbit hole. So stop me if I'm
we
going
can
too
do the
far.
same. No problem. Sure.
I love watching the Georgia beer scene, how it came up, and how it. Some people call it incestuous. I don't think incestuous. I think it's collaborative, right? But watching
That does sound better. So
watching the inspirations that twisted and tied and turned, and a good friend of mine that opened, well, just call names for names, Travis at Scofflaw.
okay.
When he was designing Basement, he was doing it with Hopdang in his hand,
Right.
and he loved that, and it was his go-to and one of his deals with that. But then watching, all the people that we moved, all the brewers that we've moved through our organization, and then where they've landed throughout, and now it's coming full circle. Now we're bringing some of those folks back into our house,
Yeah.
as some of the breweries aren't making it, and just watching the pieces of who came from where, and the collaborative nature. It's all coming full circle, and it's pretty cool to know that our brand had a big impact on so many of these other breweries with their brewers that they have.
Yeah. Well, to add even more to the Jekyll Scofflaw tie, so a good friend of mine lives just a block or two from me, Joe McIntyre. So, Joe started bottling beer at Jekyll, working the packaging line, and then, got this opportunity. I believe he was there with, Travis and the crew in the basement, making basement there. So,
Joe told us we hired Joey, and I love him. He's great. And me and I sit down at Woodstock occasionally and enjoy beers together. When we hired him, he told me, he said, "Hey, my friend's coming from the West Coast, and we're going to open a place in Atlanta." And we were like, "Thanks for being honest. We appreciate that candor. Yeah. Let us show you how we make our beer." And he was our midnight brewer at the time. When we started, we had a little too small of a brew house for the success that we had on Hopdang Diggity. And we ran the brew house as a 10-barrel brew house. We ran it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And Joe McIntyre worked third shift. I mean, he was the midnight guy coming in brewing Hopdang all night long, and excited to do it. Right. I mean, just salt of the earth, great person. I love Joe.
Super smart, really nice guy, hard worker, and that you got the trifecta when you find someone like that. And I don't think I mentioned it, but Joe is now the brewmaster at Scotland. He started with them before the brewery actually launched, and so that shows dreams can come true. He started out packaging beer, brewed for Jekyll, and then went over to Scofflaw.
I do like the trends in beer. It's always interesting because for a hot minute, around maybe a little after the pineapple habanero Hopdang Diggity came out, it seemed like everybody was coming out with a hot pepper beer. Like I remember Sculpin had some sort of a habanero, like everybody did. And then I thought about it recently, like all of those options are mostly gone. I know of like 3. Yours is one, the Atlantucky one, and I think Monday Night also makes one. And I didn't even know the Monday Night still made there. So like the options are limited, but they're still there. So the best ones hang on. And every now and then, yeah, it's nice to get something that's got a little bite
Which
to
one's
it.
Monday night doing?
I think, oh, what was it? It's one of the it's
I
a
forget
blind
their
pirate,
pepper
isn't
one
it?
there.
Or maybe it's not.
I don't know if they still do that, Brian. I'm not sure. Possibly. Mike, did
Mexican
you ever
cake
have?
out there?
Oh yeah, it just came. So they're in tall boy cans now, but it did.
They have chili.
Just
They have a
came out
chili in that.
recently. It does. Yeah. You know what? That's a good point. There are still quite a few Mexican stouts out there that utilize,
Yeah.
chili peppers in it.
I might be thinking, getting my wires crossed with the blood orange blind pirate.
Blind pirate.
Yeah, so it's not a hot pepper. So like basically two, and then like Mexican cake. I see that come through. So that's the other hot pepper beer that I see around. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think there is. So if you like heat, you've got limited options these days.
But back when things were hopping with hot beers, Mike, did you ever have Crime or Punishment from Stone?
I didn't.
Those were
Well,
terrible.
Mitch was there. Mitch was still at Stone when they were doing those?
Would he have been there? I think Mitch may have been there. Yeah,
I think so.
Then they were great.
They were right. Then they were great. You know what? It was just liquid heat. That's
so
all there
hot.
was to it. It was liquid heat. It just wasn't enjoyable to drink. Maybe if you were making a pot of chili or something and wanted to add it to it, then
I did
that would be good. So, on the note of things being too hot, I saw a really crazy story this week. Denmark, country of Denmark, recalled some ramen noodles for being too hot. Said it was too much there. The brand, Brian, the brand. We've seen them at Bulldog, I believe is the brand, and they're known to be pretty fiery hot. So, of course, the headlines out about that were saying Denmark recalls, ramen noodles for being too hot. But if you dig into it, what Denmark is saying is it had to do with the capsaicin levels in there. They said that the capsaicin levels, which that is what produces heat, but the capsaicin levels were so high that it posted a risk, I think they said, of acute poisoning from too much capsaicin. But
I didn't realize that was possible, because you've got people that do the hot wings challenge all the time and they don't die. I mean, they probably feel terrible at the end of it, but
maybe Denmark's like, man, we can't tell. They're just going to give us grief if we say this is too hot. Maybe, you know what? Let's say there's too much capsaicin in it. Let's just say it's too much. You know what? They're dangerous. They're dangerous.
Exactly.
They can't do it. So
there are two levels of it, because I saw them available at World Market, and I'm like, oh, I love ramen and I like spicy. So I got the regular and I got the extra hot. I had the regular one and used, I think, half of the packet, and it was so hot. I'm like, I can barely eat this. And I'm like, I didn't even use the full satchel of spice in it. And I can't even imagine the full size one. That would just be incoherent pain. Basically, I would be, I would lose sight of everything.
Pass out. Mike, how are you with heat? Do you like hot?
I used to like hot, and I got on a health kick, and I backed off of it, honestly.
Okay.
I'm into the flavor side more than the, how much can I numb my innards.
Yeah. Speaking of health kick, Mike, you've lost a lot of weight, man. You're looking really good. I know those listening to the podcast can't see the stream, but you have to trust me on this one, Easy. You're looking sharp over there, so hopefully feeling good as well.
Yeah, I kicked 100 pounds.
100. I was going to say, quite a bit. Yeah.
In less than a year, I got rid of 100 pounds, and I only lost 5 pounds of muscle in the process. That was my goal: maintain the muscle and get rid of the fat.
Okay. Dang. Okay. That's impressive. I'm jealous.
Hard to do as a beer maker, beer drinker too, right?
There's a story that goes with it, and I have a public service announcement on it as well when the time's right. But when we opened our Woodstock location, Tim, I know you've been to our Woodstock location.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've been there
or
not.
I have, yes.
I mean, this location is fantastic, and the thing that's the most fantastic about it is the community of Woodstock. Like, if your listeners haven't been to Cherokee and checked out the scene in Cherokee, I mean, this is the place to be. If the banks didn't have my house tied up in Gwinnett, I'd be in Cherokee in a hot second.
Yeah,
it is such a great spot to be. And so, anyhow, our landlord at our location in Woodstock, I met, and his family's one of the founding families of the town of Woodstock. His name's Smith Johnston. You'll find his name on some of the government buildings around town, and his family's been there since the beginning of time. Well, Smith retired as a medical officer for NASA for the last 30 years. So he's been the personal doctor for the astronauts for the last 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
And he and I were talking about my health. I'm 340 pounds sitting in front of him talking about how these new Jekyll spots were going to open and all this business stress that's on my shoulders. And he says, you better take care of yourself in the process. And he turned me on to these biohackers in Orlando. He says they're the best doctors in the world. They'll take today's technology and apply it to your health. Go see these guys. So I went to this place called Fountain Life in Orlando, and they made me get serious about my health, and it's not as hard as I thought it might be. Long story short, one of the things they do, they take the top 4 killers and they eliminate them out of your life. Cardiac disease, right? Heart disease, cancer's number 2, and that's the one I want to talk about because you guys know, maybe everyone else does.
Sure. Yeah.
Our business was doing great. We opened and started the business in 2012. We come to market in 2013. We don't even get to our second anniversary. Right before our second anniversary, I found out that my wife of 22 years has stage 4 colon cancer. And I have to turn my back from the beer world and focus on family for 3 years. She fights her tail off the best she can. And me and the 3 kids, we do everything we can to help her, but she dies in 2018. And then we take a couple of years to grieve. And then I try and get back into the beer mix here just before COVID smacks us in the face. But so these new doctors, they have these stats. 40% of Americans will have cancer, right? It's not if you're going to get it or if you're not. Now think about how many cancers your doctor's screening you for. He might be using his finger to check something, in uncomfortable places. Women might be getting breast exams. Your dermatologist might be checking your skin. But there's 80 different cancers that are the top killers. In 2022, there was a new blood test, and I'll go fast on this, Tim. I know this isn't beer. In 2022, there was a new blood test created. They can draw your blood and test you for over 50 different types of cancer, and discover if you have one of these cancers at stage 0 or stage 1. Every cancer is treatable at stage 0 or stage 1. If you're not being tested, you have to wait till you feel a symptom to know, oh, I've got cancer now. And if you're feeling a symptom, it's probably advanced. Right? And you're going to struggle, and you'll be lucky to live. My wife was one of the healthiest people I knew. She worked out 5 days a week. She ate clean. She lived a healthy lifestyle. She wasn't going to the doctor because she felt good. And that was a mistake. And she purged because of it. So the moral of the story, 40% of Americans are going to get cancer. There's a blood test out there. It's called the Galleri blood test. If you search Grail or think Holy Grail cancer, you'll see this blood test pop up. And you can take this blood test and find out annually, are you good? And get rid of your risk for the number 2 killer in the world. There's my public service announcement.
There we go. If you're not getting screened, get screened. If you're not going to the doctor, go to the doctor. And Mike, I shared with you just before we got on the air, I've never been in peak physical condition. I'll leave it at that. I think that's the kindest way I can put it to myself. But because when I was younger, I was energetic and active and never felt anything, I didn't bother with the doctor because I had no need to. And then as you get older, they're like, hey, your cholesterol's a little high. Hey, we need to watch your blood pressure and that. So, it will catch up with you. Age comes at you. So even if you're feeling good, even if you're healthy, go in and get your checkups, because anything could be lurking.
You gotta go once a year.
Mike, you actually do fundraising for cancer research through Jekyll, don't you? I think once a year you have a
Yeah, and it's on behalf of colon cancer, but really I'm trying to change my flag from colon cancer to health.
Right.
And because this 40% thing, it doesn't matter what type of cancer you have. And if 40% of Americans are getting cancer, I mean, just assume you're going to get it and do the right things to catch it before it happens. But we do a colon cancer fundraise every March. March is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. That's the cancer that Aaron died from. And we brew a beer. We brand it "What's Up Your Butt."
That's right. Yeah.
put a smile on your face, make you ask why you calling it that, so that we can have that conversation. This is why I wanted to be a brewery. I wanted to be a brewery so we could sit around and have beers like we're having right now, and
Right.
talk about important issues in the world and be a better human society as a result of our conversations, right? We all love to try beers. We all love to sit around and share our experiences with the different glasses and different styles we have.
Yeah.
What better community center historically, a historic thing? You go to the pub and you solve your community issues or your social problems by talking.
That
Right.
is the historical function of a lot of these pubs. Is people would get together,
Public
they'd
house.
work
Yeah.
through they'd work through issues that they were having in town. Wasn't necessarily health issues, but there are other issues you can talk
Right.
through and come to the bottom of. And I know people like politically, like they've made plans that way, and artists have gotten together and made entire movements of art. And I think that happened in like the cafes more maybe in like Paris or something like that. But that happened in pubs too. The writers in Ireland get together in pubs, and it's like a
Well,
lot
they
of
talked about like historically America, revolutionary America, the public houses were the meeting places.
Yeah.
The founding fathers were out there having a
Oh, they could drink too. Holy
maybe
cow.
they were having grog or cider or something like that. Maybe they were having an ale, and that, but they were getting together. And one thing I think with that is, I won't say no one, but most people don't go to sit down and have a beer or have a drink with a chip on their shoulder. It's a little bit of a diffusing environment there. Hey, you know what? Let's meet up for a beer, meet up for a drink, and talk
Yes.
this out. It's like, all right, yeah, okay, let's do this. We're not on a stage with a podium with lights on us and that. So, a little
That was my
calmer situation.
inspiration. That was totally 1000% my inspiration to getting in this business. And it's funny how we evolve, right? Because our business has evolved, the industry's evolved, the landscape's evolved. But I've been able to hold true to that core value to what we're doing, and continue to create locations where where those good conversations can take place.
On that note, Mike, talking about the different locations, that was one thing I definitely wanted to speak with you about here is, as we talked about with Cascade and many others, breweries are closing quicker than we can keep up with, and no one seems to be immune from this. We're hearing some very big names that are closing their doors, very and popular beers. So that it's not necessarily, you can't always say, well, they were nobody and they made mediocre beer, because that's not always the case with these. But in light of the recent closures in the industry and what's going on, Jekyll is continuing to expand. Your Woodstock location is fairly new. What have you been over here? About a year open over here now?
Been a year and a half now.
Okay. So, Woodstock, I believe you have a location in Florida. Is it Jacksonville Beach?
I opened 3 in the last 12 months, actually.
Okay. Yeah. So how many locations
3
total do you have now, Mike?
Yeah. So we have a total of 5.
Okay.
I aspire to get to 10.
All right.
And we opened. We opened after we passed Senate Bill
63 or 85.
Yeah. Even on
probably 85.
Yeah.
It's 85. Yeah.
When we passed that, we did a proof of concept, right? And we pulled away from our tap room and we opened a restaurant version of our brewery in the new city center of Alpharetta. And it was a proof of concept for us. And what was really important to me individually was to create that town center, like we just talked about, right? A place where people can really take it out of the tap room. Let's get into right next to City Hall and create this place where people can have these conversations. But the thing I didn't like about our business in the beer industry, I didn't like that breweries were so reliant on food trucks.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I'm really appreciative of the people that own and operate food trucks because they work really hard. But
Mike, can I set a little so we've got about 40% of our listeners are Georgia and 60% outside. So for those that don't know Georgia's history with beer laws, until we passed that bill that Mike's mentioned with SB 85, a brewery could not serve food. It was not allowed.
Yeah.
So, and at that time, we had 2 different types of brewery licenses in Georgia. One was a brewery, a production brewery, the other being a brew pub. And a brew pub was actually a retail license with a special permit to brew their own beer. The big limitation there is they have a very small barrel cap. So if you wanted to do distribution, you want to do things like that, you couldn't. So when we passed SB 85, as you mentioned, Mike, that's when you gave you the idea to do the proof of concept with the brewery restaurant.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do, I wanted to put the same emphasis of passion, love, quality to our food as we were to our beer. I mean, how can we be so passionate about the beer quality and not do the same thing with food? It was so important to me that anything we were producing, that we put that same love and level of quality to it as possible. You know, when we started making beer, I brought in the very best brewer I could find at the time to partner with. At the time, it was Josh Rachel, and Josh is a great brewer, makes great products, and we were looking at what it was going to cost to make our beers, and he says, the beers I make are going to be too expensive. And I said, it doesn't matter. It's the quality that matters. There's no cap on your costs. You make the beer that you need to make with the items the best quality things you can make it, and I'll figure out, the rest of the business. And that was my same approach with our food. You've got an amazing executive chef at the time, Jordan Daniels. He wrote us a menu that was low country cuisine, and no cap on quality. You get the best quality ingredients. You make me the best possible items you can make, because the food has to match the quality of the beer. And that was the part of the beer industry that I didn't like. It was hard to go to a brewery and find the ones that put that level of love into their food, the same as they did their beer. I'm very thankful for a great friend of mine, Kerry Falcone at New Realm. They've definitely done that. Nick at Cherry Street, he definitely does that. So there's some that do it, and there's others that just want to stay in their beer bubble and let someone else do the food. But it was important to me that we did food as good as we did beer. And then, evolution happens. We evolve, and we wanted to do the same with spirits as we became a distillery. And now we're into wine, and we want the wine to be the same quality as a winery as our food.
So about those, I did notice that I saw somewhere that you were mentioning being a distillery. Are you putting that? Is that going into package, or is that just all in-house cocktail stuff? Are you going to release like a bourbon and like your own wine at some point, or so maybe that's already happening and I don't know?
So we're starting with just the model of, can we get these town centers open in great towns and create this environment where people can really come together and sit down from one another and have these conversations. And so when we did our proof of concept in Alpharetta, we weren't a distillery. And what we found was we were losing a lot of the market because they wanted to be able to go somewhere where they could also get cocktails. So that's what inspired us to become a distillery. So I went and found the very best master distiller I could get my hands on, third generation guy from South Alabama. I learned from his granddad, learned from his dad, and brought him in so that I could it's take away all the excuses from the market, right? Give them the liquor with it. So now we've got a place. Well, then we found out we were losing people because we didn't have wine. So then it was, all right, well, now we got to be a winery too. Brian, your question, what was your question?
Yeah. Well, I'd seen, I didn't even know about the wine part, but I seen that you were also a distillery. I think I was looking at your social media recently. Did you know we're also a distillery? I'm like, no, I didn't actually know that. So and I'm like, do they have product out in distribution, or is this all in-house?
So
I knew you did cocktails. So
step one is build the locations in those town centers to create the full experience for everybody. And then eventually we'll get to market. The economics of it right now is we have to keep it in-house, right?
Okay.
It's, given the way distribution's set up in this state and in a lot of other states, for the economics, for me to create my vision, which is that town center environment where people can have those conversations. So 5 locations, production facility in Alpharetta, our proof of concept in Alpharetta.
Is that the original production at the original facility, Marconi Drive?
Marconi's production, yeah. And then we went to City Center, Alpharetta, and did the first restaurant. 2 stories, Airstream bar on the top floor, first patio downtown Alpharetta to look over the town square. It was pretty cool. But we learned what we needed to know. And then I brought in, some great restaurant guys and had them look at my model and qualify it for me or not. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? Great guys from Atlanta that have been in the restaurant business forever, like George McCarroll, the founder of Longhorn, founder of Ted's Montana Grill. He owns Canoe down in Roswell in the river. I mean, great restaurateurs. Hey, am I doing this food thing right? Because I want it to be perfect. Consulted with one of the original guys from Taco Mac. You know, how fast can I want to get 10 of these spots in great towns so that we can make an impact in these communities. You know, he says you can probably open 7 a year. I was like, yeah, I don't know. So I tried 3, and 3 about killed me. So we opened 3 then. We did Woodstock. We did Jacksonville Beach, Florida, which I'll get to later why. I mean, Florida's an amazing place to bring this model. So Woodstock on Main Street, Jackson Beach, Florida. We're right on the beach. Our 2nd-story patio looks over the water. It's beautiful, brand new building. And then Gainesville, Georgia. And I intend to do 4 more in Florida, 2 in the Orlando market. The one that gets me the most excited right now is St. Petersburg. Have you guys been to St. Petersburg to see the beer scene there?
I don't think I have.
We have. We've been down. We went down for Hunapoo's Day. So Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, all in that area.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, of course.
If you get down to St. Pete on Central Avenue, I think there's 20 breweries in a 1-mile area.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's incredible. And to me, it feels like Athens, right? When you get on Central Avenue in St. Petersburg, it feels like that Athens vibe. But you can be at the beach in 2 minutes. Can't do that in Athens, obviously.
That sounds like the Florida locations sound like a very carefully thought out way to say,
or like
your beach trips are vacation. Oh, this is business. You're just sitting on the. Oh no, I've got a location here. That's right.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was
Clearwater Beach.
I didn't realize it was that solid. I mean, I've been down there the one time for Hunapoo Day, and I think that was it. And what did we do? We did a few things. I knew there was good stuff down there.
We went to Cycle. We went to Cycle Brewing.
Cycle. Oh God, the stouts at Cycle. Their barrel program is fantastic.
Yeah. And I know their beer week is something that makes all the rest of us jealous. But I had no idea it was quite that. You're talking about that makes me think about Asheville and how people talk about how because of all the clustering of things, all the breweries there, and how that's such a big, such a great beer scene. I'm like, well, that makes sense that you'd want to put something down there. It really does.
They've done they've got some breweries just focused on sours, some like Cycle just focused on stouts. What's the bigger one there? Is it Green Bench?
Is Green
Bench is down there. I'm not sure. They may be bigger than I realize there. Of course, you've got Cigar City, but that's, I think, unfortunately, a shell of its former self as well. So
it's Green Bench. Green Bench has off the wall barrel program.
Yeah. Monster City Brewing there.
Yep.
I think
St. Pete Brewing is one of my favorites. Three Daughters, Mike Harding at Three Daughters, one of my favorite people, one of my favorite breweries.
Do you know Cooney Brewing or Cooney or
Cooney? Yeah.
Cueni. Does that ring a bell?
No.
So we went when we were down for Hunapoo's Day one year. We tried to go to one brewery and it was packed out. It was just like I'm like, no, I'm not waiting 2 hours to get a beer. And so we were just driving away from that brewery and just happened to see in kind of a tiny shopping center, this place called Cooney Brewing. And we're like, what the heck? They don't look too busy. Let's just drop in. And it was a little quaint place. The owner was there. He's like, yep, I do all our brewing. I do this and that. We're just this little shop. And I think they were right on some kind of walkway to the beach. So like their back patio.
Yeah.
Their back patio was like half pea gravel and then people walking to the beach. I'm like, man, what a location right there on the path to get to the beach there. So, but we had a good time. I love finding those little hole in the wall places like that.
Was that the place that had the flight board that was like 6 feet
every beer they had? Yeah.
Just like everything. Was, and I've checked recently. They're still open in there. And I even wore the t-shirt I bought there not too long ago. I'm a little bit bigger, so it's a little tight, but I love their logo. So
it's not fitted.
It's very fitted. Yes.
The sugar skull monkey with the earring in it. I'm looking at it now, and they've got that flight board, the shape of Florida cut out.
Yeah. The one we had was like a half moon thing that was seriously like I don't know, were there probably 15 beers on there, Brian?
Something like that.
Somewhere there?
It was massive. It
Yeah,
was
but it was
yeah.
a good time. It was a good time down there. You know what? Another thing, talking about you're talking about your spirits and your wine and your beer in there and that. So you had Jekyll Coffee Lab. Is Jekyll? Are you still doing coffee as well?
Yeah, we are, and we're keeping it
Okay.
in-house.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, I had to be a realist at some point between, you know, juggling the business, and then I got into coffee before SB 85 passed,
Uh-huh.
right? So it was before spirits. It was before we got into food. We were making some coffee beers. We started with one of our imperial stouts, and then we had coffee cooter brown, and just trying to be a more responsible business owner, looking at the cost of what we were spending on coffee. And I used to have a little drum roaster at my house, right? So I was always a coffee geek and roasting my own green beans at home through this little drum roaster, and thought, geez, you know, I could buy a commercial roaster for the difference of what I'm paying for coffee right now to put it in our beers, because we're making 100 barrels of coffee beer at a time.
Right.
And looked at the math on it, and it made sense. And I found a roaster on eBay, and found a great coffee supplier out of Costa Rica. So we import sustainably produced and harvested green coffee beans from Costa Rica. We roast them in-house, and then we distribute them to our own group of locations, you know, for the Jekyll Coffee Lab. But long story short, I wanted to go far and wide with that, where I wanted Cisco and US Foods to pick up our coffee and really make a big deal out of it. I had to pick a lane. You know, we were
Understood. Sure.
really spreading ourselves thin, and it's still a passion. I still love it. We could do a Coffee Guys Radio episode for sure,
No
because
doubt.
there's
Yeah.
so much good coffee out there.
I really want to roast my own green coffee beans. It's something I would like to do. I understand it smells terrible if you do it at home, and it takes forever for the smell to go away. But I've also heard that there's nothing. I know that I've had like really freshly roasted coffee. I know how good it is, but just roasting it yourself to your specific specifications, I can't imagine how good that's going to be.
I
And being
learned
able to do it small amounts at a time, so you've constantly got super fresh coffee. That
it's,
would
it's
be
kind of like,
amazing.
Brian, it's just like roasting a marshmallow, actually. You know, remember when you're a kid and you're roasting a marshmallow and you're not patient enough, so then you just torch the damn thing, but then you hate the way it tastes, so you try again, and you're trying to be more patient. And coffee's really very similar. You use your eyes for color, you use your nose. That smell is very important for where you are in the roasting process. But most importantly, you use time, data collection, you know, cupping and tasting and trying again and going again and again and again. But it's interesting because when I bought our roaster and I brought it over to our production facility, I didn't want to mess with the fire marshal with me putting a coffee roaster in our building. One of the things I learned as I opened our brewery was how expensive, you know, it is to do different things, and the fire department wants to check everything. So we brought in our coffee roaster, and we didn't want it to be inside because then we'd have to do permitting and fire marshal and all this crap. So we put it on a pallet, bolted it down, and converted the natural gas to propane. Right, this is what brewers do, right? We audible, and we put it on our dock. And when I roast, I go over there and I get our forklift out, and I go up to the outside of the dock, and I grab our coffee roaster and I put it outside, so that I don't have to worry about permitting and fire safety and all the other. But one of the downfalls was where I roast, it's next to our air compressor at the brewery, which is always running, and I can't hear. And when you're roasting coffee, you want to listen for first crack and second crack when the
Right.
coffee's roasting. And I couldn't hear it. But my home roasting skills, my nose and my eyes, I could smell where it was at, you know, and I could see where it was at. And I was able to refine it enough to know, all right, that's where we got to drop the coffee and cool these beans down. kind of neat story how that goes full circle.
How it evolved. So
We
you were
need a
talking about roasting
stethoscope for
you're roasting marshmallows, and as we all know, those are best if you let them catch on fire first. Is the same hold true for coffee beans?
Yeah.
No.
Want to get good fire going there first?
Yeah, get them completely covered in fire and then blow them out immediately.
Blow them out there.
Yeah,
that's
that's
I think that's what
perfect.
Starbucks does. I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
So.
And
We've done some cool stuff though. We've taken some green beans and we take one of our wet bourbon barrels after we take the bourbon out of it, and I put green beans in it. And I let the green beans sit in there and then soak in the oak and soak in the bourbon, and then roast those beans. And that gives you a coffee experience unmatched.
have you tried fermenting the green beans?
Brian, I'm going to have to cut you off, sir.
Oh.
Something I've been trying to do for a while here. We need to thank our sponsors.
Oh, okay. Yes,
So we need to thank our sponsors. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Terrapin Brewery Atlanta, big supporters of the show. We appreciate what they're doing. They're out there for you with cold beers every single Braves game. They had I think a 5 or 6 day homestand recently there. They're going to be there, man. They're going to have stuff flowing on the taps. Not only do they have good beer, but I think it's one of the better deals there. If you go in the stadium, what is it for a can at the stadium now? Like $400 for a 16-ounce can, I think.
About, yeah.
It's nowhere near that at Terrapin. So stop by Terrapin, get something cold. They're always rotating, new beers on tap, trying out new hops, new experimental beverages there. And if you want to grab something to eat, they're partnered with Fox Brothers Barbecue. We can vouch for the barbecue and the green beans. They're about 50% pork as well, so they're a real good one. So take a trip to Terrapin Brewery Atlanta. Tell them the beer guy sent you.
And of course, we missed. I personally missed that Father's Day was last weekend. I forgot to call even. That was terrible. But so I didn't give.
That is awful.
Yeah. Well, I sent a text message, so that
oh
sort of
my
counts.
God. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. Go ahead.
But don't hold this against Truck and Tap. I didn't get to give anybody my dad beer picks of the week for Truck and Tap, and I'm going to make up for that now. And if my dad's listening, maybe he'll take this as in some way compensation for me not calling because I'm a terrible person. So what is a dad beer, you ask? Opinions vary as to the style. It could be a lager. It could be a pale ale. The important thing is it's an easy drinking cold one in dear old dad's hand. So here are some easy drinking cold ones for dear old dad's hand. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, the obvious pick is Reformation's Clarity Lager. It's an easy drinking rice lager with lemon drop hops. And it's also a beer that benefits a veterans charity. Those two together, I don't know why that's so difficult. B's and V's. Anyway, at the Duluth location, let's go with Blue Jackets Phases and Stages Blue Coast Pilsner, West Coast Pilsner. Now I'm really off on the side pull tap. It's got good old piney American hops, but it's an easy drinking 5% ABV. So one dad's really going to enjoy. Another easy choice at Truck and Tap Alpharetta, Highwire's Leisure Time, a pale lager that claims to be the official beer of relaxation. And I believe that Dad is all about relaxation and doing, odd jobs on the side, but mostly relaxation. And finally, at Truck and Tap Lawrenceville, we're going with Steady Hands Lager, just lager. It's a crisp and dry pale lager with light hoppiness and a very easygoing ABV. But if Shabuzi's got your dad thinking about a double shot of whiskey, Truck and Tap has you covered there too. They have a fine whiskey and bourbon selection for you or your dad to choose from. I don't have a complete list, but I've seen them bragging about Eagle Rare and Weller, Elijah Craig, and more on social media. And on the subject of social media, you definitely should check that out before you head out. You can find all the links to Truck and Tap social media via their website, truckandtap.com, as well as a complete list of their taps and their food truck schedule. So thank you once again to Truck and Tap for your support.
Good stuff. We appreciate you, Truck and Tap and Terrapin Brewery Atlanta.
My tongue tiredness is catching on.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah.
Good
Both
people.
of
One of your neighbors down there in beautiful downtown Woodstock. Just
Woodstock and Alpharetta. Let me tell the guys at Truck and Tap are amazing. I'm so happy for what they've done and what they've created in the market. Their tap list is always top notch. I'm a huge fan of them. I really am.
They're good people. They're good people.
They're good people. The food model is different than mine. It's not my business. They do their food model. That's good. But they provide an opportunity for the public to get smart on good product and good beer. And you mentioned the bourbon. They actually have a great rum bar in Alpharetta.
I was just about to ask.
Yes,
it's a patio, and I know you're all about patios at your location. So I take it you've been there then.
I've been to all of the Truck and Taps. They're a favorite of mine. They're a go-to for sure. There's certain retailers out there that have really embraced our craft community, and Truck and Tap's a leader in that. And I'm really happy that they've done that.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
I met Zach when he was as part of a homebrew club over here in Woodstock, actually. And, he's like, hey guys, I'm a home brewer. I'm about to open up a growler shop. This is back when growler shops were cool, all the rage there.
Yeah.
So, he up Barrel and Barley. He opened Barrel and Barley in Woodstock.
Yeah.
And, that moved and then closed just because, growler shops just lost their appeal quickly. That was a flash in the pan. That was like a year or two where they had their day in the sun there. But, partnered up, started Truck and Tap, the first location here in Woodstock, and they've grown, 5 now, I think, counting taps at Feast.
Yeah. Zach and Cliff. Cliff is great.
Zach and Cliff, yep. Yeah, we hung out with them recently and did a show on hot beers. Like doing Glue Creek and stuff like that. So that was fun, man. Good
shoving
people.
hot pokers into cold beers. Right. It's fun. It's good times.
Mike, we were talking about kind of changes in beer, what's popular, spicy beers, wild beers, crazy beers. You've talked about how you did like your proof of concept for the restaurant and that, but how has your approach to beer and brewing changed since Jekyll's opened up?
So I had to figure out how was I going to open up all these town center situations, right, and keep people intrigued and interested in beer. And part of my mission that I haven't mentioned here yet is still to create the largest R&D brewery in the Southeast. So in all of these locations I'm opening, I'm putting an R&D brewery in it, right? It's a 5 or a 10 barrel system, and then a brewer with that. And when I hire our R&D brewers, the job's really easy. Make me a new beer once a week, right? So if I can get 10 of these spots open and I can have 10 new beers a week, which is insane, right? From great R&D brewers, it's just really gonna open that up. And as we've traveled that path, one of the things that became obvious, and the very obvious, is you want the very best brewers you can doing your R&D. And there's really two kinds of brewers out there. There's some that thrive in that production environment, and they like the engineering and the big systems and engineering of big systems. But your guys that really dive into the craft, they hate the engineering side and they want to be artistic on a weekly basis. Your production guy doesn't want to make a new recipe once a week.
Right. Yeah.
Your production guy wants to do the engineering, and your artistic brewer wants to get on that 5 barrel and work the crap out of it and just make you some crazy stuff. So I'm trying to create 10 locations with 10 5-barrel systems in it, where we're putting a new beer off of each one of those systems weekly, and then sending those kegs out to all the different locations, right?
Right.
And we're doing a pretty good job with that. The talent we've got is unmatched. I'm really, really pleased with it. And what I've found is, if you find a great IPA brewer, I don't want 4 more great IPA brewers necessarily, right? I got to get the great stout guy. And then our Gainesville location is very barrel centric. We've got a lot more space. So that's the one where we want the cool ship and the fooders. We were talking about traditional sours.
Right.
And get that chicken shit sour going, pull that flora fauna in and see what happens in the chicken capital of the world up there in Gainesville.
So
to find great brewers for each of those different segments. What I'm seeing right now in the industry, and I don't know if you guys are seeing it on your side or not, but this is a hard economic time for all brewers. It's a hard economic time for all small business and for all consumers, for that matter. And I'm seeing a lot of the fruited beers go away just simply because they're more expensive to make. I'm seeing a lot of breweries pull away from that and leaning into more malt-heavy things, and it's an economics thing. They're just trying to survive, keep their nose above the waterline so that they can get through this economic crisis that we're in right now.
Yeah, and that's not just, the cost, not just in ingredients, but the time to put in that beer, to put it in a barrel and let it set around and, check on it and see what's going on. And like we were talking about earlier, we got $10 hot dogs out there, Mike.
Yeah.
I've seen I've seen eggs in some places for like $4 or $5 a dozen. I'm like, how in the world is a dozen eggs $5? What is going on here? So, I tell you what, I have bought $30 bottles of beer, $45 bottles of beer. But I'm a lot more hesitant to do that now.
Yeah.
It's
Is Utopia still being sold?
I think every other year, I think is
Yeah.
the release schedule for that.
What's
Yeah.
What's the market rate on that one?
I think
did
it was
that
300, right?
Somewhere around 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I did.
what's funny is that's American market prices, because the last a few years ago, not the last time, but I had a buddy in Canada that messaged me and he's like, "Hey man, they've got Utopias at, I think they're government run shops there, state run." He's like, "They've got Utopias here." I don't remember the price in Canadian, but it worked out to $79 US. He's like, "Do you want me to get you a bottle?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." At $79, I can't say no to that. So, someone said no and they regretted it later, Brian. But
who would have done such a dumb thing?
That?
I didn't say no. I think I forgot about it. I think it's like it happened.
That definitely sounds like you, Brian.
I think that's more of a case if I wasn't on the ball and I paid for it and have regretted it since. Like I would have probably consumed it all by now, but I would have had it along the way.
Let's talk about that one for a minute. Utopia. So you make that type of investment in that beer, or even the $45 bottle. You're not going to sit at home watching Monday Night Football drinking that bottle by yourself, right? You want to share that with 5 of your friends and have some great conversations, right? I mean, that's the beer community right there that I love. And that's why I was so excited to be on your show, because I get to do that here,
right? Open someone, right? Yeah, COVID really hurt that, Mike, because we used to get together all the time. I mean, my cellar's definitely getting dusty because we just don't have as many opportunities to get together. And to be honest, we've tried a few times. People seem a lot more, I don't want to say unreliable. Maybe hesitant's the right word, but it's harder to get people together for that kind of thing now as well. So,
Agreed.
Not only do you need somebody there, because like you said, I love Black Tuesday, Brewery's Black Tuesday. And that's another one. You're 19%. I think they've got up to 21% depending on the year, but that's a $7.50 of a 19% beer. It's not a Monday Night Football kind of beer, you know? So
I have so many bottles like that they take up a lot of space, and I really want to drink these. And when I bought them, many of them years ago, it was with the expectation bottle shares happen all the time. People are always around. I got to have something to bring to them. That's a good choice. And then it disappeared. And people did figure out other things to do with their time, and they don't get together to share beer anymore, which is sad. It's really sad. It's like, it's rough on me because I have to look at these bottles every day. I'm like, I don't know when I'll ever get to drink you. I feel bad. You're lonely. You need some love.
If Brian,
our model is to get as many of those small batches done as possible, make them available. So there's always something new whenever you come into one of our spots you can try. And unfortunately, it's not super economical to get them in a can and get them out to market, as it is to keep them in house right now. So as we get through the hard economic times, we keep them in house. And we created a brand, actually, as great as the craft beer community came, and as many people that began drinking craft beer that weren't craft beer aficionados necessarily, right? We're going into town centers, so we're getting 15% of our crowd are the craft beer lovers, and 85% of our crowd is the town lover for the town that they're in. And they would walk to our bar back when we opened Alpharetta City Center, and they would say, "Hey, what's the thing you got closest to Blue Moon?" Mm-hmm. And we heard that so many times. And finally, the brewers came to me and said, "Look, we're gonna brew a wheat beer with tangerine, not orange, and we want to name it Moon People." And I said, "Well, why do you want to call it Moon People?" I said, "Because that's what we call the guests that come in. They come in, they walk to the bar, and they say, 'What do you got like Blue Moon?'" So our staff automatically started calling them the Moon People.
That's good stuff.
So we created Moon People for the Moon People. So to your point, Tim, as we pay attention to 85% of our crowd as well, it's people are becoming more health conscious, more calorie conscious, more cost conscious. Mm-hmm. And so therefore we created the light lager that those people want to drink. And it was just when we were opening our Jacksonville Beach location. So we created Jacktown Coastal Lager. Yeah.
Got a little
And
Jacktown can right here for those watching the
Oh, I
live
get it.
stream.
Jacktown. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4.2.
okay.
Does that say 4.2, Mike?
yeah, it's a light one.
4.2.
And we put a little amberjack fish on the top to go with it, right? To
There
make
we
it
go.
coastal. So funny story for anyone that hears it that wants to know, naming beers is always fun, but it's a challenge too. You want it to be the right name. So we were building Jacksonville Beach location, and I'm driving between Atlanta and Jack's Beach quite a bit as we're doing that. And I'm listening to I listen to all types of music, and at that time I was listening to what's his I'll tell you in a minute. Rap artist I'm listening to from Atlanta, and he's from Mississippi. He's from Jackson, Mississippi, and he called out Jacktown in one of his rap songs. And I'm listening to it, and I hear him say Jacktown, and I'm thinking, man, that'd be a great name for a beer in Jacksonville. But then later discovered he was from Jackson, Mississippi. So even though the beers might look like Jacksonville, it was named after. I'm brain farting. Sorry.
Inspired by, right? Inspired by
14%
Jackson,
beers.
Mississippi. There, huh?
Older rapper, TV show with his wife. His wife was Tiny.
Is that her name or her size? So
no, he's from Atlanta.
Okay.
Who in Tiny? Someone in Tiny. I can't believe he's an icon. I can't believe I'm brain farting.
I'm gonna have to see. I'm gonna have to. Where's Nate? You need to get better because we need someone to Google
T.I.
So
yeah, exactly.
Oh, is it T.I.? I didn't know he was from Jackson, Mississippi. Okay.
Oh, it's T.I. Okay.
All right. T.I.
Okay.
What you know
Shout
about
out to T.I. T.I. and Tiny. So T.I. has a song where he calls out Jacktown, and I thought, man, what a great beer name that'd be.
Okay.
And so we kind of jacked the name from T.I.
Jacked the name.
So on that note, Jekyll Brewing, again, for those not in Georgia, is also an inspired by name because we have a Jekyll Island here. I think some people outside of Georgia know Jekyll Island, but has that caused confusion with people, or have people been like, "Oh, are you from Jekyll Island and such?"
Yeah, so you guys get the exclusive scoop on here. It's
all right.
So Jekyll Brewing. My business plan version 1, we were Jekyll Island Brewing.
Okay.
And we changed it because I met with some of the guys from Jekyll Island about how I really wanted to use our brand to do some good philanthropy for them. And there were some personality conflicts that didn't work. So we went with Jekyll Brewing.
Okay.
And then it turned out there was a contract brewer in California who owned the intellectual property for Dr. Jekyll in the category of beer. And we had been operating for 2.5 years. If you didn't hear the beginning of this show, at year 2, my wife was diagnosed with late stage cancer. So I've got family crisis going on, and I get a letter from a lawyer, cease and desist the use of your brewery name, because this guy who contract brews 2 brands out in California is Dr. Jekyll, and he doesn't like that we're Jekyll Brewing. It's creating market confusion. And I called the guy, just tried to craft beer community, you get on the phone and you talk to each other and you work out your differences. And he's like, look, it's causing issues on Untapped.
Untapped.
Yeah.
Creating market confusion. And at the time, Hopdang had taken off. Hopdang was the #1 selling IPA in Georgia in 2014 and 2015. We were IPAs were pretty new in 2014 and 2015. Goose Island was the person we dethroned to be the top IPA in Georgia, which surprised me. I thought Waters IPA would have been it, but it was Goose Island.
Huh.
And we dethroned them. We were later dethroned by the great guys over at Creature and
Tropicalia, right? Yeah.
Tropicalia took over, and Basement did a number on us as well. They're all I'm happy for them, right? And great stuff. But we had to do a deal with the guy to change our brand and list it as inspired by rather than just Jekyll Brewing.
Okay, gotcha.
So we paid them a whole lot of money. The things of business that a lot of beer fans don't think about, right? I mean, it cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars because this guy was upset, and we sent him a check, and we changed our brand to show inspired by Jekyll Island across the top, and he bankrupted 3 months after we did the deal.
Oh,
Take the
man,
money and run.
If you had just held that a little while, you could have
Yeah, I know. I should have held out longer,
What a
right?
mess.
But for those that don't know, Jekyll Island was the first location of a brewery in the Deep South back in the 1730s.
Right.
Tim, I think you know the story, and
Yep.
the story takes a long time to tell, but Georgia was founded, and the right-hand man of James Oglethorpe was Major William Horton. And Major William Horton was trying to please Oglethorpe and King George II and keep the settlers of Georgia on track with what they should be doing. When you got to Georgia as an original settler, they gave you three things. They gave you a deed to a tract of land, so you got free property. They gave you a bag of tools, so when you got there, you could build your shelter. And they gave you a barrel with 44 gallons of ale in it, so you could stay hydrated. Right, 1730s, Louis Pasteur had not discovered pasteurization, so you didn't drink water because you got sick. But you could drink low ABV beer and be healthy, so you would stay hydrated with beer. On my shirt, even there's a barrel symbol here with a 44 on it, right? That kind of represents the 44 gallons of ale that you got when you arrived on the shoreline. Finally, the settlers revolted against King George II, decided they were going to do what they did, and Oglethorpe went to Major William Horton. And he said, "Thank you for everything you've done for the colony of Georgia. As a reward, we want to give you this piece of land." And it was Jekyll Island. So, I got this neighbor, and I think everybody does. My neighbor, Jeff, wants to be involved in everything that I'm doing. He's a great guy.
Okay. Yeah.
But when I'm doing something, Jeff wants to be a part of it. Hey, Mike, what are you doing today? Let's do it. He's a great guy. William Horton was that way. So you take that busybody guy and you put him on an abandoned island. What in the heck? I mean, something's going to go wrong with that scenario, right? William Horton's going bananas trying to figure out what he's going to do. He decides he wants to continue to help. He knows Fort Frederica is right across the waterway, and they need beer to serve the masses, kind of in a waterworks kind of fashion. So he builds the first brewery of the Deep South on Jekyll Island so that he can send beer to Fort Frederica. And what's the history of beer in the Deep South? It was originated on Jekyll Island in Jekyll, Georgia.
It's good stuff, man. Give them 44 gallons. Mike, we are going to have to wrap up with that story, but we want to let folks know where to go if they want to find out more about Jekyll Brewing.
JekyllBrewing.com. Visit one of our locations in Woodstock, Georgia, Gainesville, Georgia, Alpharetta, Georgia, or if you like the ocean, come to Jacksonville Beach. You won't be disappointed.
And keep your eyes on Orlando and Clearwater, right?
Orlando and Clearwater, 2 and 2. We'll have 4 more. Kissimmee, Winter Park, Tampa, and St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, for anybody, whether Jekyll's there or not, you guys got to check out the scene. Visit my friends at St. Pete Brewing. They're great.
Good stuff. Mike, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for doing what you do.
Sure thing, man. Thank you. Y'all, thanks for joining us for the show this week. We hope you have enjoyed. You know what? You got to learn something, not just beer. We're talking health advice, staying away from noodles that are too hot. You get a lot when you listen to Beer Guys Radio.
History of beer.
Yeah. Yes, man. The history of beer. So we hope you all have a good week, have a good time, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers. Clear.
All right.
Thanks, Mike. That was a good conversation, man. I think we covered some good stuff there.
Hope I didn't go down too many rabbit holes for you guys. It was
No.
really good to see you, Tim, and you
No,
too,
it's you
Brian.
too, man.
Yeah.
Tell you
it's
what,
nice seeing
hang
you.
out just a second, Mike. Y'all, we are going to end the live stream now. If you are one of our Patreon supporters, and we hope that you are, we're going to drop a link in our Discord chat. You can come join us for the after party, have a beer with us. Otherwise, y'all have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.